Hello, everybody, and welcome to Surly Podcast number 2. We've got a pretty good show for you on slate for today. I am doing it remotely from beautiful, beautiful Bergen, Norway. Black Lab, what do we have in store for the crew today?
So we're going to talk about some current events in football, some Urban Meyer and Texas A&M interesting story as well. And then I'm going to tell a story that is long and continues to go on. That's about 5 years in the making, about a guy by the name of William Stanley. And then we'll get into the post of the week, and then a couple threads that you enjoyed, and then we'll make a couple of football picks for the weekend and see who picks better. So another thing on Mac is we're going to have a special guest on today, Durka.
We did try and set that up, didn't we? So
I got his phone number. We're going to give him a call and splice him in to the podcast. So I know you're excited.
Great. I've wanted to talk to this guy ever since he made that response to me on podcast number 1.
Yep. All right. We'll get to him here in a little bit.
Well, let's go ahead and get started. I think the big news of the week, right, and the not even the elephant in the room, but just like the thing that is rocking college football right now is Urban Meyer only getting a slap on the wrist for his involvement in the systematic domestic abuse from one of his staff members.
Yeah,
I mean, what do you think about it?
It's one of those things that the actual event probably doesn't warrant his suspension. You know, having a guy on his staff that abuses his wife, you know, that's probably not a fireable offense for Urban. But when the investigation started, he calls the guy who's supposed to come and get his phone to get the evidence off the phone, calls that guy, says, "Hey, come down to practice and show me how to wipe my phone." And then the guy goes down and wipes his phone. That guy then is told by his boss to go get the data off Meyer's phone, and he never gets it. And then in the report, there's like 3 or 4 lies that Urban does. It's like, okay, have the guy on your staff, not a big deal. You know, don't talk about it, you know, cover for him a little bit, not a big deal. But then get investigated and wipe your phone, which is probably subject to the Freedom of Information Act. So he probably broke a law or two by wiping his phone. And then, you know, just completely lying to the board. I mean, at that point, if you have any integrity at all, you have to fire him. But it looked like the board was just looking for excuses to not fire him more than investigating the whole thing.
Well, and this isn't just, right? I mean, it would be one thing if he was beating on his wife and everybody knew about it, and that's just a shitty situation. But he was also sexually harassing everything and anything that had a pussy that moved.
Yeah.
I mean, he was all kinds of inappropriate stuff on the job, and they systematically allowed him to keep doing this and kind of knowingly hired a guy that was in a shitty position. Some of this stuff is starting to leak out.
Yeah.
But other things, right? I mean, like one of the coaches in the investigation, they didn't even interview. How much of an investigation did they actually do into this? Or was it just enough to be smoke and mirrors for them to have come to this result, a month ago, whenever this all came out, and they just needed it to play out like they were actually doing something?
Absolutely. All smoke and mirrors. The outcome was predetermined, and then they just found evidence to point them in that direction. They didn't investigate. They didn't ask questions. They didn't ask any hard questions. It was obviously just a big whitewash. So, it's obvious that Ohio State football is more important than integrity or domestic violence, and that's what they've decided. So,
no, I mean, it's just that kind of trash that you're dealing with. I mean, how much is a national championship worth in college football? I'd love to see a thread get started on that. What do you think a national championship is worth? Because I don't think it's worth this amount of publicity.
No, if Tom Herman had done 1/10 of this stuff that Urban just did, I'd want him fired, and I would definitely, send a letter or two off, angry letter to CDC and whoever else that, hey, this makes UT look bad. Let's, it's education first, football second. There's no need to sell our soul to the devil to win football.
You opened the can of worms, so I'll take one out. I mean, what do you think? Is it worth mentioning? Is it even a news story that Tom Herman was at a strip club?
Let's go ahead and
we talk about.
Let's raise the hands of the people on this podcast who haven't gone to a strip club. Okay, I don't see any hands. An adult man can go to a strip club if he wants to. There's nothing wrong with it, and as long as your wife doesn't really care, who gives a shit? And even if it's between him and his wife, I don't have no problem with Tom going to a strip club. Even I have no problem with him taking high school coaches to a strip club. Fuck, half the oil and gas deals in Houston are done at a strip club. I mean, it's ludicrous.
I mean, I don't know if you saw some of those tweets about basketball recruiting. And if going to a strip club was a recruiting violation at all, then hundreds of schools.
Yeah, exactly.
Would be sanctioned right now.
I remember going to Sugars and seeing Vince Young and Casey Studdard and a bunch of other football players, and I looked on my phone for birth dates, and not one of them was. I mean, half of them were under 21. But that's the perks of being a UT football athlete in Austin is they don't card you at the door at the strip clubs. That's part of the deal. So I have no problem with it.
Yeah. So I don't know how this reflects badly on A&M. First of all, I know that everybody loves to talk about how much shitheads we are and everything, but I don't know that Jimbo has brought that much dirty business from South Florida over to College Station already. And A, it wasn't even a guy that he brought in. B, something that's worth noting is that Kevin Sumlin at this point has already removed that guy from the team. Completely unrelated. Turns out that guy is a racist piece of shit.
Yeah,
and got
apparently
himself
was calling teammates
before
monkeys
he even got started.
During watching video of the spring game practice film or something like that. So yeah, so now he's off the Arizona team, which is kind of funny. So what I'm really interested in is if he's going to go total scorched earth now and really release even more information. But yeah, the things that he talked about that A&M did, coach giving him money to entertain recruits, and those are minor violations that probably may get a coach suspended for a game or two, but it's not going to be end of the world, even if they're all true. So.
I mean, you can get, apparently, not to come back to Urban Meyer, apparently you can get a 3-game suspension and coach the team still.
I know.
Starting this Monday,
and he's not going to be on a cell phone with somebody in the booth.
Me off. Just pisses me off, Blackwell.
Telling him what to do for stuff, too. So back in 2014, a poster to be named later posts a thread called Advice, Selling an Ongoing Business Through a Broker, parentheses, Generation Equity. And it's a standard shaggy thread. Somebody's asking advice on what to do. His friend had been trying to sell their business and gotten approached by a company called Generational Equity, who wanted $36,000 down to help sell their business. He thought it kind of sounded like a scam. And at that point in time, if you went around the internet, you could find all kinds of Better Business Bureau and Ripoff Report and other places that people did feel ripped off because they paid the $36,000 and then Generational Equity didn't do a whole lot and stuff. So it was a standard thread that a few jokes and a few good things. Texas 3-Putt immediately posts in, how many USB ports are we talking here? And then the lawyers goes to LL and Trophius.
How does this turn into a story worth telling? Is this
Well,
just a normal Shaggy thread, or what happened next?
yeah, so the thread dies in May. And then in September, this guy shows up named William Stanley, who was apparently a black hat SEO guy for generational equity. So as it turns out, William was their black hat guy who would go around the internet trying to scrub anything bad about generational equity off the internet. And he actually ended up blackmailing and extorting them for money, telling them that he would undo all his work and release all the stuff if they didn't pay him. And so they called the FBI, and then he ended up getting convicted of blackmail and extortion, goes to jail for a couple of years, and then part of his probation is that he
So
can't.
was this so when he came to Shaggy, was this before he went to jail, or was this after he had already been in jail? And then did we ever find out how he found the website?
Actually, it was while he was still in jail. So apparently, he was posting from a halfway house on a cell phone, and so it wasn't even he wasn't even out of jail, and he was already breaking his probation for the thing. So he found us by the same way everybody else finds us, by going to Google, typing in generational equity, and Shaggy was loved by Google because all the content, all the stuff. So if at that point in time, if he did a search for generational equity, the Shaggy thread was like the third or fourth thing on Google at that time. So he shows up, and it starts to get weird. He accuses them of, being scam artists and doing things, and then also, having sex with farm animals and other assorted stuff. Shaggy, of course, eats it up, and the thread goes on for another couple weeks, and then just kind of dies a natural death. But apparently, the reason it died
The natural
was
aspect of the thread on Shaggy.
he went back to jail. So I'll post a link to the thread in the podcast thread. But so he goes back to jail for breaking his probation. And then, so a couple months later, I'd completely forgotten about it. Didn't even really register with me. And I get an
Yeah, did he
email
just
from
ride
the,
off into the sunset and just like rot in jail this time? No internet access?
well, yeah, kind of. so he goes to jail, and then a couple months later, in October of 2016, I get an email from the FBI asking for what email did he register with, and what any information I could give him about these particular posts and this particular thread. Getting an email from the FBI is not something you really expect to get. And so I emailed the guy back. I was like, "How do I know you're not, just trying to punk me or prank me or?"
How do I know you're FBI? Show me your internet badge, bro.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, I found this phone number for FBI office in Dallas. Can I call it and get to you? And he's like, yeah. So I call the FBI office in Dallas, and then they transfer me to the guy. So I find out it's actually a real FBI guy. And they're like, okay, we want the IP addresses and emails and all this dates and times of these posts. So I end up giving them to him, and then don't really hear anything for a couple months. And then,
And just so some of the listeners who may not know, this wasn't the FBI was an abnormal occurrence, but law enforcement and lawyers in general and other people, they contacted Black Lab and me and some of the other moderators fairly frequently on the old board Shaggy.
yeah,
So it wasn't like out of the norm to really get some of these calls. It is pretty out of the norm for the FBI to come knocking, though.
yeah, that's the only time I've ever actually dealt with the FBI in anything. So, like 5 months later, March, I get an email from them again saying a subpoena to come testify in Dallas. And so I drive up to Dallas. I sit outside a courtroom from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. one day, and then the next day sit out in the hall of the courtroom. I couldn't even go in and listen to the trial, and then sit outside the courtroom from 8 till 2 in the afternoon the next day, and then finally get called in at 2 o'clock and testify about the stuff. So what was kind of funny about the trial, there's this poor public defender defending William, and then there's this highfalutin, DA, U.S. attorney prosecuting. And it was at that time that I really kind of, felt sorry for William. I mean, obviously he's nuts, but obviously the government is ramrodding him,
Certified.
and basically he's going to jail for saying things on the internet, basically. And so I tried to steer my answers to the questions as favorably to William as I possibly could, because fuck the man, fuck the police, and so I testify for about an hour and a half, and then get sent home and get paid, like $100 or something from 3 days of being up there, and he ends up getting convicted of breaking his probation and talking bad about generational equity online, basically.
So is that the end of the story there? That's just doesn't seem so funny at the end there. So how does this round out?
So the next thing that happened was I get a nasty email from Generational Equity telling me, hey, you need to remove this from your website. I completely ignore them, tell them to F off. I don't tell them to F off. I just, just ignore them. And then I get an email from Candy,
Send them pictures of dick butt.
The prosecutor, and saying, hey, are you going to remove this stuff? Or, you need to remove this stuff. He was convicted, blah, blah, blah. If you have a reason to not remove it, please let me know. And I just completely, of course, ignored that email. And then a month later, I get another email saying, hey, we sent you that email a month ago. Are you going to do this or not? So I email her back, and here's my email. I think it's horrible that Generational Equity is getting the government to do their dirty work. I reviewed his posts and don't think they rise to the level of an attack against Generational Equity. They just seem to be William telling his story. If you can point out the parts of the post that are untrue, I will gladly remove those parts. And Candy emails back, Mr. Black Lab, I, the jury, and the court disagree with your assessment. We will be in touch soon. And then I never heard from her again. So this was May of 2017, and I figure, okay, this is the end of it.
Oh man, so it's been over a year since.
Yeah, then. And so a couple months later, August, I get an email from Google telling me that they've received notice that these pages are in violation of, broke a law or whatever. So they're removing these pages from the index of Google. So now if you go to Google and search Generational Equity Shaggy, those pages don't even show up in Google. So they've been removed from Google. I never removed the pages because, fuck the man. And so the pages are still up there to this day. I'm looking at them right now. So they're still up there. I'm sure Kevin will get an email someday from somebody saying remove them, but I still haven't removed them. So I thought that was the end of it. And then in January 2018, I got an email from William's lawyers that he was doing an appeal, and he wanted my Apache logs from those dates that he was posting. And unfortunately for him, those Apache logs were long gone. The logs get rotated and are only there for a couple days, or they'd fill up the hard drive. And they have filled up the hard drive multiple times. That's usually 98% of the time why Shaggy was down.
Turns out that people like to look at pictures of Sarah Jean Underwood's ass a lot. So we do have to rotate the logs.
Yeah. Yeah. So I tell Willie I'm sorry. And then he disappears, or, I don't hear anything again. And I thought, okay, now it's the end of the story. So August 3rd, I'm at home because I work from home some days. And I'm.
So that's 26 days ago.
Yeah, just 26 days ago.
A short 3 days ago. Or
3 weeks ago. So I'm walking to my kitchen to cook some lunch, and the dog starts barking, and I look out, and there's a guy standing outside my front door, and I'm thinking, oh God, dang it, it's a sales guy or whatever. And I open the door and look at his hand, and I see legal paperwork, and I'm just like, oh fuck me, another fucking lawsuit, or what the fuck now? What the fuck could I possibly be getting summons or subpoena or lawsuit, or what the fuck? And he was like, yep, here's you're getting served with subpoena, and hands it to me. And I'm like, God damn it. And then I look at it, and it's Generational Equity versus William Stanley, a civil trial occurring in Dallas. And I have been subpoenaed to testify in that trial, or actually subpoenaed for deposition in that trial.
So that was 3 weeks ago. Are you going to go to this trial?
So
you have to, right?
The deposition was actually supposed to take place August 22nd. So I call and talk to my buddy who's a lawyer in Dallas, and he says, so he calls the lawyers of William Stanley, and their lawyers kind of like give him a little bit of background that the Generational Equity is suing William. William's destitute, doesn't have any money, but his daughter and his wife do have a little bit of money. And so they're suing him. They've named his ex-wife in the lawsuit. They named his daughter in the lawsuit. And apparently William comes from money and inherited a bunch of money years ago. And they're trying to basically try to go find that money. Whoever has it now, his ex-wife or daughter or whoever. So the deposition is supposed to happen August 22nd. August 20th, I get a call from my lawyer that he had just gotten a call from their lawyers that William died in prison on August 19th. So my deposition is canceled.
Wow.
And I get an email from the lawyers saying, hey, he's dead, so we're going to postpone this. We're not sure if we're going to continue the lawsuit or not. We'll let you know. And that ends the story of William Stanley.
What a story. And so that's a
Ended
saga
May
that spanned how many
2014
years?
through August 2018. So 4.5 years this went on.
Of just a crazy guy and an example of what not to do on the internet.
I mean, the thing about it is, he basically went to jail for talking shit on the internet, basically. And sure, he made up some stories and did some stuff, but it just goes to show how a politically connected company like Generational Equity can get the government to do their dirty work. And I think he would have been fine if he hadn't blackmailed and extorted them, if he just went and posted all this stuff. But I think the blackmail and extortion is what really got him. But the fact that after he was convicted, then he got part of his probation was he wasn't allowed to basically talk on the internet. That's kind of fucked up.
And then he starts posting on the one place on the internet where you probably couldn't
that's the thing.
find more.
Yeah, of all the places he found, there's a billion websites, and he found Shaggy and posted on Shaggy. So yeah, it's something else. What a weird story. That hopefully they drop the lawsuit, but who knows? I may be going to deposition, and
who knows? Well, let's talk about some college football picks for this next week. Getting off of that, it just shows you how crazy the internet can be.
So,
but we got some college football coming up this weekend.
Okay, so now that we got that story out of the way, let's talk some football. It's opening week. Are you excited for some football, Mac?
Oh man, I'm so excited. We're gonna try and find a place here in Norway to watch the games in the middle of the night. Hopefully there's some bars showing them, but if not, we're probably gonna have to come back to the room and watch some of the games in the middle of the night.
Well, remind me to give you my Slingbox address, and you can watch through that. So, what I thought we'd do for this week is make a couple picks. We got 4 games going that are of interest. One is, of course, Texas, Maryland. Then there's Texas A&M against Northwestern Louisiana Women's College, I think it is, and then
Yeah, I think they called them the Little Sisters of the Poor.
yeah, and then the Ohio State, Oregon State, and then Michigan Notre Dame is probably the biggest game of the weekend. So let's start with your Aggies against Northwestern, the school for disabled children, deaf, dumb, and blind cripples.
So the all of the stats on ESPN show this game being a complete blowout. So much so that tickets at Kyle Field are available for as low as $3. So if I was going to be wagering any type of money on this game, it would definitely be for the Aggies on almost whatever the spread is. But I think since there has been nobody that's willing to put money on this game for Northwestern State, they haven't even made a line for this game. So
let's just set the line at like 30.
Money line. We'll just do money line, win loss, and set it at.
I mean,
10,000 to win $1.
Well, I mean, obviously, I put the money on Northwestern State, but I'll put $1 on that. You want to do? Should we do a football or have a bank and make bets each week, or should we just like head to head wins and losses?
Let's do a bank.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll do $1,000 starting. So I will bet money line at plus 10,000 for A&M. Or mine, yeah, whatever it is. I will bet $1 actually for the Aggies to lose, because I do think it would be kind of funny what it would happen to our fan base with Jimbo at the helm losing to the Little Sisters.
Yeah, so whatever it's 99.6 to 0.4. So extrapolate that out to the odds. So there's so $4 wins you 10,000.
There you go. $4.
So
4 whole buckaroos.
I'll bet $8, so I'll win 20,000 on that. Okay, and then game of the week, Michigan Notre Dame. Michigan's getting a point. Harbaugh finally has a quarterback. Is he actually going to have a decent team this year? Or is he going to? You're well connected with your wife and her family, all Michigan people. Who's going to win that game?
Yeah, I think, it's at Notre Dame this year, and that's a really tough place for Michigan to go in and play. So I think even with that point, I've got to go with Notre Dame. I'd put, a hundo down on that.
Okay, well, I'm going the exact opposite. I'll put 100 down on Michigan. I think Jim's going to finally has his kids there now and has a quarterback. I think they're gonna roll. So, okay, the next game, the wife beating bowl, Oregon State, Ohio State. Ohio State's given up 38.5 points to Oregon State. Who do you think's going to win that one?
Oh, dude, there's no way that they cover that with a backup coach and everybody, just nerves the first game. I don't know that they're going to come and blow out Oregon State. But, I got to go and put the rest of the money that I've got on Oregon State to just come and win that.
So you're going to put $900 on Oregon State?
Well, 899.
Okay. So I'm gonna
on Oregon State to cover their part of that. Yeah. So
okay. Well, I'm gonna split up the rest of my money. We got one more game to bet, but I'll put half of what I have left. I'll put 390 of it on Oregon State. I think I don't think Ohio State's going to come out and roll. I think they're going to too many distractions and too many things. So I'll put half my money on that, and then whatever's left. Last game, Texas, Maryland. I think we're going to smoke them. We're giving out 13.5 points. The eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. I'm going to put the rest of my money on Texas minus 13.5.
You see what I did there on that last game, and how I have a big fat zero bet there. I don't think I'm ready to bet any money on the Longhorns for or against. We've got to see what happens in this game one. I think it's going to be pretty important to set the tone for the season.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. Well, we'll next week we'll find out. We'll keep scoring and see who's ahead, and we'll keep going the rest of the year with $1,000 every week. See who wins the most.
So, what's your pick of the week for thread? Or since we haven't done this in a while, the last couple of weeks.
So definitely my thread of the week is Thujon coming back from the dead and gracing us with a MS Paint. If you haven't seen it, look on the football board and look for
just a bit of MS Paint to get the season going.
Yep, that's my my thread of the week. Enjoy. Thujon is really, I have to give hats off to him. He brought literally thousands of people from other message boards and other places to Shaggy, and a lot of those people have stuck around to Surly. So Thujon I'll always be indebted to for his artwork, and some of those gifs from like Texas OU, the bags of dicks and all that stuff. Just that's what made Shaggy
my favorite special on that weekend is the state of
I still have a Oklahoma eating a giant dick T-shirt that I don't wear anymore because my wife basically said we were going to get divorced if I ever wore it again in front of her. But
who knows? Maybe
I still have it.
A collaborative feature with Thujon and Surly in the future. To be determined.
Yeah.
So
all right, what's yours of the week?
Up, a thread, and since we haven't done this in about 10 or so days, I went back a little bit further, and I actually found a thread for the It's Happening on the Texas end zone getting constructed, and there's actually a post in there from Miles Long, post number 270, and we'll link that in the thread so that you guys can go see it. But it shows a rendering of what the potential end zone construction looks like, and there is a great surprise that somebody wanted to put in there.
Yeah, don't ruin it for everybody. Just tell them to go look at it.
Yeah.
All right. So another podcast in the books. Anything else? And it looks like we're out of time and won't be able to get Dirk on. We'll try to get him on next week.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I totally forgot about the guy. I guess the podcast's over, though.
Yep. Out of time. We'll catch you next week.
All right. Bye.